Hi, this is Vernon Wease. This is video number 2, and I will be talking about the Holmes Ray test first. I hope you took it, and if you did, um, you got your score. And so, if you want to send your score and any comments to me, my email address is VWEASE, so VWease at SMU edu. That's the shortest. I've got 3 emails, but that's the shortest and easiest one I've got, so I'll just use that one. vweese at smu.edu. And what I want you to realize is with the Holmes Ray test, it connects stress and health. The reality is that you're going to have physical outcomes to mental stress. And, we know that just because of common sense, but I do realize in our day and time, we've got a lot of things going on with COVID-19, and you may be stressed already. And so if you are stressed already, for instance, financially, this isn't going to help, especially if you lost your job. So, and I lost my job, and it's not been easy. I just started working this job 2 months ago, and it was going well, and I may get it back, I may not, because of it's with the school system. So I don't know what they're going to do. So here we go. You're going to face stress, and it's going to have physical effects. And with this, this is just a reminder, something to check you and say, yeah, I need to pay attention to my body. Your body is going to tell you about stress. I can tell you what my stress signals are. My stress signals are my lower back and my neck. When I was a pastor, I was a pastor for over 25 years. When I was a pastor, and I still am licensed, but I obviously don't have a church. I'm just attending here. But when I was a pastor, my neck would lock up on this side, and I couldn't turn my neck that way. I really couldn't. The trapezius muscle in my neck would go crazy, and I couldn't move. I could turn one direction, but not the other. Well, you're going to have early warning signs physically. You need to pay attention to your body to know how stress is affecting you. So that's what you got. This is just what you got to do to be a healthy human being. And it also helps because you know when you need to pray. You know when you need to act. You know when you need. God's not doing this for no reason. You might think that because it just hurts, but He's reminding you that you need to do something about what's going on. You need to embrace faith. I talked about last week. Our source of hope is not in our external things. We don't. And I want to repeat one of the verses in Matthew 6. It says, "Don't worry like the pagans do." That's a pretty big indictment. And that reality is that you have some choices to make in the middle of all this. You don't have to, do everything you can possibly do. We got lots of instructions coming from the president and others, that task force. So you've got lots of that going on. Don't worry about it then. Do what they say, and you can't do more. So after you've done all you can, you have to trust God. That's it. So you can't control what the virus is doing around the world, but you can control your actions in faith to say, I'm in God's hands. I'm not going to let this destroy my health, because in the end, if it wears down your immune system, you could actually make yourself worse off. So I want to say that, trust in the Lord. And so the first thing I want to talk about after that is learned helplessness. And this has to do with this because sometimes we hit stress and we 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 feel a victim of circumstances. Um, and this victimology is very powerful. If you listen to the first video, you'll know that I did social work and I was a pastor. I've done about 30 years in a combination of those. And one of the things I've recognized is, especially as I dealt with clients, I had 3 clients I dealt with that had been abused. They ran into a men's homeless shelter, and I counseled them, and I got resources for them, and spent in some cases hours with them. 2 were women, 1 was a man, and they were all going through being abused or victimized. Um, and some surprising things I learned about that. Um, the fact that it takes 12 times leaving to stay gone. You know, and it was not gender related. The man went back the next morning to the woman that had been hitting on him. He was smaller than her, and it was not a situation where he couldn't be hurt. And she was physically hitting him, and he had bruises and all kinds of things. And the next morning he called her and begged. I heard him using my phone because at the office he said, can I use your phone? And then he got on the phone and called her and said, please come get me. So it's the same for the women. They did the same thing, but 12 times leaving before. And so during this crisis, if you have learned helplessness, you're going to be up a creek, because there is something dangerous and bad about not knowing the power you have to act and to trust, and to think that somebody else outside you is controlling your events. And so you've got to take control of your events and then hand them to God and say, I'm not going to allow this to ruin my life. But Martin Seligman was the gentleman's name that did the tests that first identified learned helplessness. And for all you dog lovers, the dogs weren't hurt in this experiment. So, but the experiment was this: there was a treadmill, and they put a box the size of the dog around the dog on the treadmill, and they put the walls of it high enough that the dog could not get out. And so then they had as the treadmill was, if they were walking on the treadmill, they sent small voltage electrical shocks through this is science, folks, I didn't do it, through where they were walking on. And at first they reacted, but they really couldn't do anything. They couldn't get up off the thing, because the wall of it was just about up to their head, so they had no room to escape. So they would sit there, and they did that, and after 2 or 3 or 4 times, it wasn't very many, of doing that for an hour, 2 hours, they took the box off, and they had the same dogs walk on the treadmill, and they did the same shocks. Well, what happened was, even though they could get off the treadmill, because of being in the box and not being able to escape, as they were walking, when the shocks would happen, they stayed on it. They could walk right off, they could jump off, but they didn't, because they had been acclimated to the pain level that was happening on their feet, which is a very sad thing. But what it showed Seligman in behavior was that we can seal ourselves off to being a victim. We are not victims. And I'm going to talk about that as we go to in the end. But we're not victims. We're not born to be victims. We're victors in Christ. We can have faith to deal with all the things that are going on in this event. We don't have to scream and hide our heads, and that's kind of a worthless response. There's no way that that helps anybody. It doesn't help you either, and it all only makes you weaker. So, and it takes away your faith. So, so that's learned helplessness. That's something I want you to hear about. Um, when I talked about the neutral zone now, one of the things that William Bridges, who I introduced in the first video, he had a theory, and his theory was that there's an ending, a neutral zone, and a beginning in every event, that every transition, and the ending we talked about last time, talking about all the things that ended when this thing hit, and this new normal is with us. And I dare say that there'll be a lot of things that hang back from that. I don't think life will ever be the same again. I hope that it'll get, we can get back to normal, but you know what? I think that there'll be some changes, and who knows what they'll be. I know after 9/11, I sure didn't expect, as I said in the early one, the changes at the airport, or the, just different things that, I have to bring my I-9 every time or I have to bring a piece of paper to prove I'm a citizen every time I look for work now. That used to not be. They give a state ID was fine, but I have to take a passport or something else. So what I'm saying to you is, we will have some changes. We don't know what they will be, but we don't have to be victims of those changes. And in that neutral zone, and in the middle of there, that is that neutral zone. Last video I talked about endings. Today I'm going to talk about the neutral zone. The neutral zone is a place where anything is possible. It is neutral. It isn't the bad zone, not the good zone. It's neutral. It's according to your responses in it. And there are good things in every transition. And in the neutral zone, you can discover those things. Or you can focus on the bad things. And so what I want to encourage you to do during this time, there are a lot of good things happening in families. There are probably a lot of stress as well, especially if you've got little ones. But I want you to know that there's some good things happening. Don't miss them. Don't miss the good stuff. It's a powerful thing to realize that we have a choice, as I talked about just earlier. We have choices in our response. And don't miss the good stuff. I want to say that more than once. There are good things happening in this. And the deaths surely aren't a good thing, but that's not all. It's not all that. If you look at people staying home, people getting to know their kids. I told the example last video of the guy I know that has 5 daughters, and I didn't tell all the story. He has 5 daughters, and they're doing Zoom calls, and all 5 daughters are coming on, and his joke was to me, I don't get much word in there because all 5 are talking at once. And it's become a thing, but it's become a point of connection for all those girls. And they had, some of them didn't talk to each other more than a little bit, maybe every couple of weeks or even more, even less. They didn't do it before. He suggested, let's do a Zoom call every Thursday. Well, they're all stuck at home, so they did. Well, my point is, good things are happening. You got to sometime initiate those good things. And I'm sure that you've got to do that. But there are good things. You can make good things happen if you aren't doing that. And another friend of mine told me he had learned more new games. He did, chutes and ladders and stuff that he hadn't, staying home with young kids. And he said he's been playing games with his kids. And he was laughing about it, about the level of the games, just saying, wow, I don't know how many times I can play chutes and ladders. But It was something he's doing with one of his kids, and it's a special time for both of them. The final thing I want to go to is you're not a victim, but if you don't know who you are, there's a piece that Neil Anderson did years ago called Your Identity in Christ. And that is a powerful reality. There'll be some video links on this. You can see the list, but if you haven't seen it, most of you probably seen it, but if you haven't, or if you just need to, I think you need to review it even if you have. It's a powerful reminder of your place in God. And, we're special to God. We're unique. In my studies and my master's, it talked about how we're unique, we're individual, we're chosen. And one theologian even talked about how we are a different substance than each other. So we are not the same as everybody else, like Plato and others had tried to make us. So we're unique. We're special to him, and we're loved. Intentionality is a part of the way he made us. He wants us to be secure. And so check out those videos. I didn't put it on there, but there's a song by Lauren Daigle talking about, you say I am strong, I feel like I am weak, and it goes through a list of how she struggles to believe her identity. Check it out. I didn't put the link on, but Lauren Daigle is probably a name you can't mess up. So I want you to take control of your faith and realize who you are. Because if you can do that, this time will not be the most horrible thing. In fact, it can be a time when good things happen, and it is a time when good things happen, but you may have missed them. So I pray that this has been a time for you of reflection, and if you don't journal, start journaling and journal through your identity in Christ, and read it and react to it in your journal. Powerful reminders. But you are special. You are different. And I want you to realize that God is not going to throw you into the end of the pool and let you drown like we are now. And you could feel like you're drowning. But it's not going to happen if you trust him. And as I said earlier, don't worry like the pagans do. We're not pagans. We have a source. And so we need to go to our source, and he will help us. So thank you very much for listening. I appreciate this, and I'll be doing video 3 here pretty soon. I'm just doing 2 today, the first 2, and we'll be making a couple every day and getting them out there so you can listen to as many as you want. But if you'd like to respond in some way, my email is VWEASE, like VWease, at smu.edu. And I appreciate your time. I know it's a valuable thing, and I know it's an honor to be allowed into your space right now. So thank you.